Saffron adjusted the diamond necklace that felt more like a collar and checked her reflection one last time. Perfect makeup concealed the fingerprint bruises on her jaw. An elegant updo hid the spot where Garrett had yanked her hair 2 nights ago. The emerald Dior gown he had chosen, because God forbid she make her own decisions, cut low enough to make her uncomfortable but appropriate for his business associates' gala. "You look presentable," Garrett said from the doorway, his tone making it clear this was barely acceptable. "Remember what I told you. Smile, agree with everything I say, and for Christ's sake, do not embarrass me like you did at the Chamberlain dinner." Her crime at the Chamberlain dinner had been expressing an opinion about climate policy that contradicted his. She had paid for it when they got home. "I will be perfect," Saffron said quietly, because perfect was the only way to survive nights like these. The Belmonte estate glittered with old money and new power. Business moguls mingled with politicians while string quartets played and champagne flowed. Garrett's hand found the small of Saffron's back, possessive and controlling, his thumb pressing just hard enough to remind her who was in charge. "There is Donovan Chun," Garrett murmured, "Chief Executive Officer of Chun Industries. I need this contract, Saffron. Be charming but not too charming. Smile but do not flirt. Speak if spoken to but do not monopolize the conversation." Impossible standards wrapped in contradictions. Her specialty. Saffron plastered on her society smile and followed Garrett through the crowd. She noticed the other man standing with Chun before Garrett did. Tall and devastating in a black suit that probably cost more than her wedding dress, with sharp cheekbones and dark eyes that seemed to catalog everything. Korean, she thought, probably in his early 30s despite an ageless quality to his face. "Mr. Chun," Garrett said smoothly, extending his hand. "Garrett Whitmore. We spoke about the merger proposal." "Of course." Chun shook his hand politely. "May I introduce Kong Ronan? He is a business partner of mine." Something flickered in Chen's expression when he said business partner, perhaps a warning or respect. Ronan's handshake with Garrett was brief and professional, but when his eyes moved to Saffron, something shifted. Recognition, perhaps, though they had never met. Somehow, he saw past the makeup and the smile and the carefully constructed facade. "Your wife?" Ronan asked, his accent barely noticeable. "Saffron," Garrett said, his hand tightening on her waist in warning. "Darling, say hello." "Pleasure to meet you both," Saffron said, offering her practiced smile. Ronan's eyes lingered on her face, specifically on the spot where makeup did not quite hide the shadow of a bruise. His expression remained neutral, but his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "The pleasure," Ronan said quietly, "is mine. Have you ever worn a mask so convincing that you almost forgot your own face underneath? Share a moment when you had to hide your truth in plain sight." The conversation turned to business, mergers, acquisitions, market projections. Saffron stood silent beside Garrett, her role reduced to decoration as always. But she felt Ronan's attention drift to her periodically, assessing and calculating. "Saffron studied economics at Yale," Garrett said suddenly, a statement meant to impress but delivered with an undertone that made it sound like a character flaw. "Before we married, of course. Now she focuses on more important things, charity work and hosting." Translation: before he isolated her from her career aspirations and made her dependent on him. "Yale," Ronan said, his dark eyes finding hers. "Impressive. What was your concentration?" "International development and trade policy," Saffron answered carefully, gauging Garrett's reaction. "I was particularly interested in sustainable economic models for—" "That was years ago," Garrett interrupted, his fingers digging into her waist. "Ancient history. Saffron is far too busy now to worry about such things." The dismissal stung like it always did, but Saffron kept her smile fixed. She had learned to swallow her intelligence, her opinions, her entire personality to avoid Garrett's rage. "Pity," Ronan said softly. "Intelligence is a terrible thing to waste." Something dangerous flashed in Garrett's eyes. "Are you implying my wife's talents are wasted?" "I am implying nothing." Ronan's tone remained neutral, but there was steel underneath. simply observing that Yale graduates in international economics do not often abandon their ambitions without reason. The tension crackling between the two men made Chun shift uncomfortably. "Gentlemen, perhaps we should discuss the contract terms." "Excuse me," Saffron said quickly, desperate to defuse the situation before Garrett's temper exploded. "I need to powder my nose." She fled toward the restrooms, her heart hammering. In the ornate bathroom, she gripped the marble sink and forced herself to breathe. 5 more hours. She could survive 5 more hours, and then they would go home, and maybe, if she was lucky, Garrett would be too drunk to. The door opened. A woman entered, elegant and in her late 50s, with kind eyes. "Are you all right, dear?" "Fine," Saffron said automatically. "Just needed a moment." The woman studied her with the knowing look of someone who had seen too much. "That necklace is beautiful. And heavy, I imagine." Saffron's hand moved unconsciously to the diamonds. "It was a gift. Some gifts are chains dressed up pretty." The woman touched Saffron's shoulder gently. "If you ever need help, there are people who can provide it. Safe places. Resources. I do not know what you—" "Yes, you do." The woman pressed a card into Saffron's hand. "Just in case." She left before Saffron could respond. The card read, "New Beginnings Advocacy. 24-hour hotline." Saffron shoved it deep into her clutch, her hands shaking. When she returned to the ballroom, Garrett was alone, his face flushed with anger and champagne. "Where the hell have you been?" "The bathroom." There was a line. His hand shot out, gripping her upper arm hard enough to bruise. "Do not lie to me. You were gone 15 minutes. Garrett, people are watching." "I do not care." His grip tightened. "You embarrassed me in front of Chun and that Korean bastard, making me look like I cannot control my own wife." "Mr. Whitmore." Ronan's voice cut through Garrett's tirade like a blade. He stood 3 feet away, his expression unreadable but his posture radiating quiet menace. "Remove your hand from your wife," Ronan said softly. "Now." Garrett's face went crimson. "This is a private matter between me and my wife." "Nothing is private when you are bruising a woman in the middle of a gala." Ronan's eyes flicked to where Garrett's fingers were white-knuckled on Saffron's arm. "Let her go." "Who the hell do you think you are?" Garrett released Saffron but stepped toward Ronan aggressively. "You do not know anything about my marriage." "I know what I see." Ronan did not back down an inch. "And what I see is a man who hurts his wife and expects no consequences." Guests were starting to notice the confrontation. Saffron's cheeks burned with humiliation and fear. This would only make things worse. When they got home, Garrett would— "You arrogant piece of—" Garrett's hand moved toward Ronan, but before he could make contact, Ronan caught his wrist with inhuman speed. "I would not," Ronan said quietly, his grip clearly painful based on how Garrett's face contorted. "Men who put their hands on women tend to find karma has a way of returning the favor." "Let go of me." "Gladly." Ronan released him with a slight push that sent Garrett stumbling backward. "Perhaps you should call it an evening, Mr. Whitmore. You seem unwell." Garrett's rage was volcanic. Saffron recognized the signs, the vein pulsing in his temple, the tremor in his hands, the wild look in his eyes that preceded violence. He was going to explode, right there in front of everyone. "You son of a—" Garrett lunged, not at Ronan but at Saffron. His hand found her throat, fingers closing around her windpipe as he shoved her backward into a marble column. "This is your fault," he hissed, his breath hot and reeking of alcohol. "You always do this. Always make me look weak." Saffron clawed at his hands, unable to breathe, black spots dancing in her vision. She heard screams from nearby guests, felt the cold marble against her spine, tasted copper where she had bitten her tongue. Then suddenly the pressure vanished. Garrett flew backward as if yanked by invisible strings. Ronan stood where her husband had been, and Saffron watched through watering eyes as he slowly and deliberately rolled up the right sleeve of his expensive suit jacket. The tattoo that emerged was intricate, a dragon in traditional Korean style rendered in black ink that covered his entire forearm. but it was what the tattoo represented that made the nearby guests gasp and step back. The mark of the Biko Syndicate, the Korean Mafia's most powerful family. "You just made," Ronan said, his voice deadly calm as he advanced on Garrett. "A catastrophic mistake." Garrett scrambled backward, his earlier bravado evaporating. "I did not know. I did not realize who you. You knew exactly who you were." Ronan's hand shot out, gripping Garrett's collar and hauling him up to eye level. "A man who beats his wife. That is all I needed to know about you." Security was rushing toward them now, but everyone seemed frozen, unsure who to restrain. The man defending a woman or the man who had just strangled his wife in public. Saffron slid down the column to the floor, her throat burning, her carefully constructed world shattering around her. Because whatever happened next, there was no going back. Garrett would never forgive this humiliation, and she would pay for it. Donovan Chen's voice cut through the chaos. He stood with his phone out, the recording light visible. "Mr. Whitmore assaulted his wife in front of 200 witnesses. I have it on video." Other phones emerged from the crowd, dozens of them, all capturing Garrett's fury and humiliation. "This is insane," Garrett sputtered, straightening his jacket with shaking hands. "She provoked me. She always provokes me. By existing?" Ronan's voice dripped contempt. "By breathing." Security finally arrived, but the head of security, a weathered man with military bearing, took one look at the situation and made his decision. "Mr. Whitmore, I am going to have to ask you to leave." "I am leaving," Garrett spat, "and my wife is coming with me." He moved toward Saffron, but Ronan blocked his path. "No, she is not. She is my wife. She is a human being who you just assaulted." Ronan's hand had not moved from his rolled sleeve, the dragon tattoo a visible warning. "If you touch her again, I will consider it a personal offense. And trust me, Mr. Whitmore, you do not want that." Garrett's eyes darted around the room, seeing the phones, the disgusted expressions, Chen's damning video. His carefully cultivated reputation crumbled in real time. "Fine. Keep the ungrateful woman. But this is not over." He stormed out, leaving a wake of whispers behind him. Saffron stayed on the floor, unable to process what had just happened. Her throat ached. Her entire body trembled. The carefully constructed facade she had maintained for 3 years had just shattered, and everyone had witnessed it. Ronan knelt beside her, his earlier menace replaced by surprising gentleness. "Can you stand?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. He helped her up with a hand under her elbow, steady and careful. "I have called my car," he said quietly, so only she could hear. "Let me take you somewhere safe." "I do not know you," Saffron whispered, her voice hoarse. "No, but you know him, and you know what is waiting if you go home tonight." Ronan's dark eyes held hers. "I am not asking you to trust me. I am asking you to trust your instincts about self-preservation." Chun appeared at Ronan's shoulder. "I have sent the video to my attorney. If Mrs. Whitmore wants to press charges, we have ironclad evidence." "I cannot," Saffron said automatically. "His family, his lawyers, they will destroy me." "They will try," Ronan agreed. "But I promise you, they will not succeed." "Why?" Saffron searched his face. "Why do you care? You do not know me." Something painful flickered across Ronan's expression. "My sister. 5 years ago. Her husband." He stopped, jaw working. "By the time I found out, it was too late. She did not survive her last beating." The raw grief in his voice made Saffron's chest tighten. "So when I see a man put his hands on his wife, I do not walk away." Ronan extended his hand. "Let me help you, please." Saffron looked at his outstretched hand, tattooed and dangerous, belonging to someone who moved in worlds she did not understand. Then she looked at the door Garrett had exited through, knowing what awaited her if she followed. She took Ronan's hand. "Okay," she whispered. "Help me." Ronan's car was a sleek black Mercedes that whispered wealth and power. His driver, a stern-faced woman with observant eyes, opened the door without question as Saffron slid into leather seats that probably cost more than her first car. Where are we going? Saffron asked as they pulled away from the Belmonte estate. Somewhere Garrett cannot follow. My home. Ronan glanced at her. I have guest rooms. Security. A doctor on call who can examine your throat and document your injuries, if you will allow it. You have a doctor on call? In my line of work, medical discretion is valuable. His slight smile held no humor. I am not going to pretend I am a good man, Saffron. I have done things that would horrify you, but I do not hurt women. I do not hurt anyone who does not deserve it. The Biko Syndicate, Saffron said quietly, remembering the gasps when his tattoo had been revealed. You are Korean Mafia. I prefer entrepreneur with unconventional business practices. But yes, Ronan's honesty was startling. My family controls most of the import-export operations in this city. Some legal, some less so. Does that frighten you? Less than my husband does, Saffron admitted. They drove in silence for a while. Saffron watched the city lights blur past, her mind racing. She had left her phone at the gala. Garrett controlled the account anyway. Her credit cards were all in his name. She had no access to their bank accounts, no independent income since he had pressured her to quit her consulting job 2 years ago. She had left with nothing but the dress on her back and a stranger's promise of protection. I cannot pay you back, she said suddenly. Whatever this costs, the doctor, the room, your help, I have nothing. Garrett controls everything. I am not asking for payment. Everyone wants something. Ronan turned to look at her fully. My sister's name was Hannah. She was brilliant, studying architecture at Seoul National University when she met her husband. An American businessman, very charming, very respectable. He isolated her from our family, moved her here to the United States. By the time I tracked her down, she had been hospitalized 4 times with accidents. His voice remained steady, but pain threaded through it. The 5th time, she did not make it to the hospital. Saffron's breath caught. I am so sorry. I could not save her. But I can save you. Ronan's eyes held hers. That is what I want, Saffron. Not payment, not favors. Just the chance to do for you what I could not do for Hannah. The car pulled up to a modern glass and steel house perched on a hillside, security gates sliding open silently. Inside, the space was minimalist and elegant, all clean lines and expensive art. A woman emerged from a side room, older and professional, carrying a medical bag. This is Dr. Yoon, Ronan introduced. She will examine you, document everything, and provide treatment. You can choose to press charges later or not. Either way, you will have evidence. Saffron's phone, the one Garrett controlled, had been buzzing non-stop in her clutch. 37 missed calls, 42 texts, escalating from apologies to threats. Come home right now. I am sorry, baby. I was drunk. Stop being dramatic. If you are with that Korean man, you will regret it. I will destroy you. You are mine. Ronan saw her reading them. Block the number. Or better yet, give me the phone. Saffron handed it over. He removed the SIM card, snapped it in half, and dropped the pieces in the trash. Tomorrow we will get you a new phone. New number. New bank account in your name only. New everything. He met her eyes. If you want it, this is your choice, Saffron. All of it. What would you sacrifice to reclaim your own life, security, familiarity, or the person you have had to become to survive? Let me know in the comments. 3 days later, Saffron woke to Ronan's head of security, a man named Jax, knocking urgently on her bedroom door. Mrs. Whitmore, we have a situation. Garrett had filed a missing persons report. But that was not the worst of it. His family's legal team had obtained a court order declaring Saffron mentally unstable and demanding her immediate return to his custody for psychiatric evaluation. They're claiming you had a breakdown, Ronan explained, his jaw tight as he showed her the legal documents. That you're suffering from delusions, paranoia, and that my influence has made you incapable of rational decision-making. Saffron's hands shook as she read. His uncle is a superior court judge. They've done this before, gotten court orders, used the system to trap women who tried to leave. I know. Ronan's voice was grim. I had my people dig into the Whitmore family history. 2 previous wives, both declared unstable. One is institutionalized. The other disappeared. The blood drained from Saffron's face. Disappeared. Officially, she moved to Europe. Unofficially, Ronan's expression was dark. No one has seen or heard from her in 6 years. Saffron's carefully maintained composure finally cracked. She had known Garrett was dangerous, but this was calculated, systemic evil backed by money and power. "They're coming here," Jax said quietly. "Police escort with the court order. Maybe 20 minutes out. Can't you stop them?" Saffron's voice broke. "You have power, resources. Not the kind that overrides a court order." Ronan's frustration was evident. "If I resist, I give them exactly what they want. Evidence that I'm holding you against your will, manipulating you. Plays into their narrative. So I just go back?" Saffron felt hysteria building. "Let them lock me in some facility where Garrett controls everything?" No, Ronan's hand found hers. "There's another option. It's risky, and I will not ask you to take it unless you're absolutely certain." "What option?" "We fight back publicly. I have contacts at 3 major news outlets. We give them everything. Dr. Yoon's medical report, photos of your injuries, the video from the gala, testimony from witnesses. We destroy Garrett's credibility before he can destroy yours. His family will retaliate," Saffron whispered. "They have politicians, judges, connections everywhere. And I have connections they cannot touch. The Biko Syndicate does not answer to their world." Ronan's eyes were fierce. "But Saffron, you need to understand. If we do this, there is no going back. You'll be exposed. Your private hell will become public consumption. Every detail of your abuse, broadcast for millions. Everyone will know I'm weak, that I stayed for 3 years, that I let him. Everyone will know you're a survivor," Ronan interrupted, "that you're strong enough to expose a powerful family's darkest secrets." Saffron thought of Hannah, of the woman who had disappeared, of all the women who had been silenced by men like Garrett. "Do it," she said. "Tell them everything." Ronan pulled out his phone, but before he could dial, Jax's radio crackled. "They're at the gate, and Boss Garrett is with them. He's demanding to see his wife." Through the window, Saffron could see the police cars. She could see Garrett's car. She could see him pacing like a caged animal. Coming for her. Always coming for her. "Make the calls," she told Ronan, her voice steadier than she felt. "Make them now. Before they get through that gate. I want the truth already spreading." Ronan made 3 calls in rapid succession, his voice calm and authoritative as he spoke to journalists who clearly owed him favors. Within minutes, Dr. Yoon's medical report was in their inboxes. The gala video, testimonies from witnesses, a comprehensive timeline of Saffron's abuse, backed by hospital records Ronan's people had obtained. "It's done," he said, setting down his phone. "By the time they get you in front of a judge, you'll already be headline news. The court of public opinion moves faster than the legal system." A police officer appeared at the gate intercom. "We have a court order demanding the release of Saffron Whitmore to her husband's custody." "My attorney is en route," Ronan responded calmly. "Mrs. Whitmore will comply fully with legal requirements, but she requests counsel be present." "That is not." Garrett's voice cut through, shoving the officer aside to scream into the intercom. "Saffron, get out here right now. Stop this insanity." Saffron's whole body tensed, the reflexive response to his rage. But Ronan's hand on her shoulder anchored her. "He cannot touch you here," Ronan said quietly. "He always finds a way. Not this time." Ronan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then showed her the screen. "Look." It was a news alert. "Whitmore heir accused of systematic abuse. Wife's medical records paint disturbing picture." Already the story was breaking. Already the narrative was shifting. Garrett's screaming intensified. "You're destroying me. Everything I've built. My reputation. My career. You selfish woman." Something inside Saffron snapped. Not broke, transformed. 3 years of silence, of swallowing her voice, of making herself smaller to survive his ego. And he was worried about his reputation. She walked to the intercom and pressed the button. "You destroyed yourself, Garrett?" she said, her voice clear and strong despite her bruised throat. "I just stopped covering for you. When I get my hands on you, you will not." Saffron's hands were shaking, but her voice held. "You'll never put your hands on me again. And every woman you ever hurt, every person you ever threatened, they're watching this. They're seeing you for what you really are. You think anyone will believe a hysterical woman over me? Over my family? I think 200 people saw you strangle me at a gala." Saffron's voice gained strength. "I think Dr. Yoon documented 17 separate injuries in various stages of healing. I think your second wife is still institutionalized and your first wife disappeared. I think people will connect the dots." Ronan's attorney arrived, a sharp woman named Lucia who moved with predatory efficiency. She reviewed the court order, made several calls, and returned with a grim smile. "The judge who signed this just recused himself. Conflict of interest. His daughter is on the Whitmore Foundation board. The order is void pending review." She looked at Saffron. "Which gives us time. The media coverage is already forcing an investigation into the Whitmore family's pattern of behavior with former wives." Through the window, Saffron watched Garrett's face contort with rage as police explained he could not force entry. She watched him realize his money and connections were not enough. "Not this time." "What happens now?" Saffron asked. "Now," Ronan said. "You take your life back, every piece of it." The next 6 weeks were a whirlwind. The media coverage exploded, not just about Saffron, but about the entire Whitmore family's history. Garrett's first wife came forward from France, where she had been hiding for 6 years. His second wife's family filed to have her psychiatric commitment reviewed. 3 other women who had dated Garrett before marriage shared their stories of escalating control and violence. The court case became secondary to the court of public opinion. Garrett's firm placed him on indefinite leave. His family's foundation lost major donors. The social circle that had enabled his abuse quietly distanced themselves, protecting their own reputations. But the real turning point came when Saffron sat for a televised interview. "Why did you stay?" the interviewer asked, the question everyone wanted answered. Saffron looked directly into the camera. "Because he made me believe I deserved it. Because he isolated me from everyone who might have helped. Because the system protects men with money and power, and I was terrified no one would believe me." She paused. "But mostly because I did not know that leaving was possible, until someone showed me it was." She glanced off camera to where Ronan stood watching, his expression unreadable. "The man who helped you, Kong Ronan, he's known to have connections to organized crime." The interviewer pressed. "Some people are questioning whether you've simply exchanged one dangerous man for another." "Ronan saved my life," Saffron said firmly. "He asked for nothing in return. He gave me resources, safety, and most importantly, he gave me back my agency. The choice to fight or flee, to speak or stay silent. Those were my decisions. For the first time in 3 years, I was making my own choices." After the interview aired, public sentiment shifted decisively. The narrative became about survival, about courage, about a broken system that failed women like Saffron. Garrett's attorneys approached Lucia with a settlement offer. "Full divorce, no contest," Lucia explained to Saffron in Ronan's study. "Division of assets, 50%, which is more than generous considering we have evidence of financial abuse. He will sign a permanent restraining order. And he will release all claims to your shared property." "In exchange for what?" Saffron asked, suspicious. "You do not pursue criminal charges. You sign a non-disclosure agreement about certain family matters that have not been made public yet." Saffron looked at Ronan, who had been silent during the negotiation. "What do you think?" "I think it's your decision," Ronan said carefully. "Criminal charges could put him in prison, but trials take years and would keep you tied to him. This ends it. Cleanly. Permanently." Saffron thought about it. About the freedom to never see Garrett again, to never speak his name, to close this chapter completely. "I'll take the settlement," she said. "On one condition." Part of the divorce agreement includes a public statement from Garrett admitting to the abuse. No deflection, no excuses. Just the truth. Lucia smiled. I'll make it happen. 2 weeks later, Garrett's statement appeared in major newspapers. Short, bitter, but true. An admission that would follow him forever. And Saffron was free. She stood in Ronan's garden the day the divorce was finalized, breathing in air that felt different somehow. Lighter. Ronan found her there. How does it feel? Strange, Saffron admitted. Like I should be celebrating. But I'm just tired. Freedom is exhausting at first. You've been running on adrenaline for weeks. He stood beside her, close but not touching. What will you do now? I do not know. Saffron looked at him. What does someone do when they get their life back? Whatever they want, Ronan said simply. 8 months later, Saffron stood in front of the New Beginnings Advocacy Center, the organization whose card a stranger had slipped her at the gala. But she was not a client anymore. She was their newest board member and primary donor, funded by her divorce settlement and a consulting business she had rebuilt from scratch. The center helped 32 women leave abusive situations last month. She told the small gathering of supporters and survivors. 32 women who, like me, thought they had nowhere to go. We're expanding to 3 new locations, offering legal aid, job training, and safe housing. She scanned the crowd and found Ronan standing in the back, his presence steady and constant. He had been there for every milestone. The first night she had slept without nightmares. The day she had signed the divorce papers. The moment she had pitched her first consulting client and landed the contract. They had grown closer slowly, carefully. Ronan never pushed, never assumed, always giving her space to heal and discover who she was outside of Garrett's shadow. But somewhere between late-night conversations and shared meals, between his quiet support and her growing strength, friendship had deepened into something more. After the event, Ronan drove her home to her own apartment now, a space she had chosen and decorated herself. But they ended up at his place, as they often did, sharing wine on his balcony overlooking the city. I'm proud of you, Ronan said quietly. What you've built, who you've become. I could not have done it without you. Saffron turned to face him. You gave me the chance to survive. Everything after that, I built on the foundation you provided. You would have found your way eventually. Maybe. But you made sure I lived long enough to try. She set down her wine glass. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why have you not kissed me yet? Ronan went very still. Because I did not want you to feel obligated. Because you've been healing and I did not want to complicate that. Because you're afraid I'll see you as a replacement for Garrett instead of who you actually are. Saffron finished. But Ronan, you're nothing like him. You've proven that every single day for 8 months. I'm still a dangerous man, Saffron. I still run an organization that operates outside the law. You're a man who saved my life and asked for nothing in return. She moved closer. A man who has been patient and kind and respectful of my healing. A man who makes me feel safe and valued and seen. She touched his face. I'm not confused or grateful or rebounding. I'm clear-headed and certain. I'm in love with you, Kong Ronan. His breath caught. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He kissed her then, gentle and reverent, tasting of wine and promise and new beginnings. When they pulled apart, his forehead rested against hers. I've loved you since the moment you stood up to Garrett through that intercom, he confessed. Watching you find your voice again, watching you become fierce and unbreakable. It has been the greatest privilege of my life. Then stop watching from a distance, Saffron whispered. Be part of this with me. Really be part of it. Yes, Ronan said simply. Whatever you need, however you want this, yes. A year ago, Saffron had been a woman trapped in a nightmare, convinced she would never escape. Now she stood in the arms of a man who had rolled up his sleeve to defend her, who had given her back her life and then stepped back to let her live it. She had run into that gala ballroom wearing diamonds that felt like chains. She walked away wearing scars that had become armor, carrying strength she had forged in fire. And she was finally beautifully free. This story explored themes of escaping domestic violence, reclaiming personal power, and finding love built on respect and choice. What does true strength mean to you? The ability to endure or the courage to walk away? Share your perspective in the comments, and if this story resonated with you, subscribe for more tales of survival, transformation, and unexpected love.